While it may seem like the early settlers of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and other of the early civilizations may have had it made, it was hard and often unforgiving to be one of the many occupants of the first empires to ever rule the earth. It wasn't that easy growing up in Mesopotamia, living under a strict code of laws restricting your every move, or being forced into slavery in Egypt, bound to work involuntarily for the pharaoh and his grand viziers. People face many hardships on their path to a civilized society, usually ending up more uncivilized than they had hoped. But not all misfortune came from the malcontent of humans. Some hardships early peoples had to deal with were catastrophes of nature. One example of this type of conflict would take place in an early civilization called Crete. Crete had an outpost for trading overseas called Minoan, located on the volcanic island of Santorin. The civilization was flourishing when the inactive volcano suddenly erupted and buried the once great colonies. This was a devastating and tragic event that left most of the population either injured or dead, but it was not the only disaster of its kind. Many years later, the same set of circumstances happened in the ancient empire of Rome in a city named Pompeii. Like Minoan, the people did not know what was happening due to their inadequate technologies, and the volcanic eruption left many for dead. While the natural disasters of Crete and Pompeii were devastating and horrible, there were things that people did in ancient times that may be much worse. Slavery. Slavery is a word written all throughout history because the rulers of old empires just cannot think of a better solution. There was slavery in China when the Chinese Emperor Shi Huangdi was determined to build a great wall as a giant chain of defenses to keep enemies out and traders in. The labor required to accomplish such a task was very physically demanding on the body, and many died from the suffering that was the construction of the Great Wall of China. Slavery is also a theme in ancient Rome, where they forced slaves to fight to the death by threatening their life in the world-famous Roman Colosseum. If the emperor liked the fight, he would grant the winner his life and sometimes his freedom. But if he didn't like it, then the contestants would be killed in an exotic way, like being eaten by a lion or a tiger to entertain the crowd. Another example of slavery was the Egyptian enslavement of the Hebrews. Some Hebrews settled in Egypt and were forced into slavery. Moses, who was brought up by an Egyptian princess despite being a Hebrew, demanded that the Pharaoh let his people go in the name of the God of Israel. After releasing 10 plagues on the Egyptians, the Pharaoh finally listened and released the Hebrews. Soon after they left, the Pharaoh changed his mind and sent men in chariots to pursue them and bring them back. The Hebrews were cornered against the Red Sea when Moses parted the great sea of reeds, and the Hebrews passed through safely, and their pursuers were enveloped in the waters. Both of these hardships were devastating to the people of ancient civilizations, but neither were as devastating to the ancient peoples as war was. War is a theme found throughout all of history since the beginning of the earth all the way to present day. Rome was an empire built on war. It was dependent on constant conflict to grow and expand into one of the most successful imperial powers in history. Rome used warfare to expand from a small town in Italy to consuming most of Europe, some of Asia, northern Africa, and the islands of the Mediterranean. Another example of war would be when China was under the rule of Di Xin near the end of the Shang dynasty. When Di Xin started to become corrupt, King Wu of Zhou defeats him in the Battle of Muyi. Di Xin goes off and commits suicide, and King Wu of Zhou starts the Zhou dynasty, which lasts for 500 years. During the Zhou dynasty, wars were ongoing and there was constant conflict. But despite all of the chaos, China experienced a remarkable intellectual revolution. They developed 3 different philosophies, including Confucianism, which remains important to this day. This shows that no matter the hardships that peoples of the ancient civilizations had to face, they were still able to overcome those hardships and move forward and shape the earth into the great world that we live in today.